think we talk about a lack of leadership in our society. I hate to hear people say because I said so, right? And they don't want to explain the why behind the how, right? I
Yeah.
think the why is almost always more important than the how because the how can change. The why should probably be consistent.
Rich Brown, how you doing, man?
Staying out of trouble,
Staying out of
work too
trouble.
much, not getting paid enough. You know how it is.
Yeah, I know exactly how it is. Where are you from, man?
Originally, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Oregon and Montana. And then I was stationed out in Marine Corps Base, Hawaii, real hardship tour. And then I taught at Quantico for 4.5 years. And that's what put me in Virginia.
Really? So what'd you teach at Quantico?
So everything from hand-to-hand combat, leadership, heavy weapon systems, tactics, you name it. If it needed to be taught at some point or another, I had my hand in it.
So it's just like a natural progression from being from the Northwest. It's kind of natural progression to be like the survivalist type of guy in the military, right?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I did spend a lot of time outdoors growing up, especially in Northwest Montana. Um, but the military teaches you all those things too, right? So you can be from, backwoods, wherever, or New York City, and you're going to get everything you need.
Yeah, yeah, for real. I live right next to a Air National Guard base, so we've got planes flying all over the place, and so I actually an hour north of Kansas City. So there's we're militaries all around me. So you're right. As a matter of fact, I was just like last year. It was my son's 15th birthday, and we were he wanted a barbecue or a bonfire get together. And so I got the whole family together, and I had some wet wood, and I didn't realize it was wet until I went to go start the fire, and I started the fire and it went out and it kept going out. And I had a Navy guy there, and he's like, that's not how you start a fire. And I was like, well, come on over here and show me, man. And so he's like, you got to start with, your small stuff on the bottom, and your dry stuff. You want dry small stuff at the bottom, and then you just stack on top of it. And he says, wait to put your big stuff on until very last, and when you get it good going. And so I did that, and it didn't go out. And he's like, you got to fan it a little bit. You got to give it some air. And I was like, well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. It's going to help me out for the rest of my life. I was like 39 at the time. It's,
Sure.
you know, so tell me about a little bit about your experiences in the military, how long you were in. Are you reserved now or?
No, so I was a sophomore in high school on 9/11. And so I very promptly, the day after my 17th birthday, I joined the Marine Corps. And then 4 days after high school graduation, I went off to boot camp. Um, and so I was in from 2004 to 2012. I've been out of the Marine Corps longer than I was in. Every once in a while, I'm proud of what I did. I certainly have no regrets whatsoever, but you also kind of become aware of like, I don't want to be that guy who identifies as what he did for 8 years of his life 40 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So I'm definitely not trying to only be that guy, but I have zero regrets about who I am or where I've been or what I've done.
Can you talk about like what your job was?
Yeah, my job doesn't exist anymore. I was a 0351, which is like regular infantry, except for that I specialized in rockets and demolitions. So, I joined the Marine Corps to be in the infantry. It was funny. I went to the recruiting station and I scored very, very well on the ASVAB, and the recruiter essentially told me like, "Look, you can do anything you want in the Marine Corps."
Hell
I
yeah.
said, "All right, sweet. I want to fly helicopters," and he's like, "You're not going to fly helicopters." Well, why not? You said I could do anything. It's yeah, but only officers fly, and you've got a 1.89 GPA and have no intention of going to college, so you're not going to fly helicopters. I said, all right, well, I want to drive tanks. He said, you're probably not going to drive tanks. I said,
Man,
all right,
okay,
so why can't
what
I
can
why
I
can't I drive tanks?
yeah,
And he
so
says,
why all the fun stuff you're taking away,
right. Well, he explained to me, he said, this is the Marine Corps, not the Army. We have like maybe 12 tanks, and you're probably not going to get one. I said, all right, so what can I do then? And he said, well, why do you want to join the Marine Corps? And I said, I don't want to have to sit down later in life and think that someone out there is fighting for me and my family and my rights when I had the opportunity to do it for myself. And I don't try to press on anybody else. That's just how I feel about it, right? And he said, well, if that's the case, then your place is in the infantry. And I said, well, I think you're just trying to fill a quota, right? He said, well, think about it. If you're not in the infantry, then you're supporting the infantry. Everyone in the military is either fighting on the front lines or they're
Supporting
supporting
them.
the people who are on the front lines, right? And
Yeah.
so if that's the reason you want to join the military, you might as well be the one kicking the door in. And I said, all right, I'll go to the infantry. And so I got through boot camp just fine with the School of Infantry. And about a month into the School of Infantry, they start talking about specializations. You can be a machine gunner, you can be a mortarman, you can do all these things. And they said, who wants to shoot rockets from their shoulder and make doors where there aren't doors out of explosives? And I about had a panic attack trying to raise my hand higher.
Yeah.
So
So
I became an 0351, and that was a career mistake, but a great experience because I didn't know and couldn't have known that they were phasing out the 0351s. And so, by no fault of my own, I never got into any real serious trouble in the Marine Corps, but I got promoted very slowly because they didn't want us anymore. So they
yeah.
didn't they weren't going to need staff sergeants and gunnies that had been 0351s. They were getting rid of us. So
Man, that's kind of sucks actually, but I mean, it's
it
a
is
good
what it is.
experience for you.
Yeah. I did
So,
Afghanistan and Iraq with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and then went to Quantico. And as shortly after I got to Quantico, I was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury from an experience I had in Iraq. And they said, "We're not going to let you reenlist. We'll let you finish out your career here teaching, but we're not going to let you go back to the active duty, the combat
right.
arms, as they say, and lead people in combat again."
Do you support that decision?
Yeah, it was hard to
Would you
choke
have?
down at first.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know, I've been really fortunate. My uncle, uh, I looked up to my entire life,
Yeah.
and he's going on 80 now, and so he's the type of man who was a man's man. He did everything himself. If the truck was broken, the tractor was broken, the mile long driveway needed to be plowed, he was doing it himself, right? And I think men really a big part of our self-image and our self-esteem is based on our ability to take care of ourselves and take care of others. And when you
Yeah.
start to get of a certain age, you have to rely on other people to take care of you, and it's a kick in the balls as a man
Yeah.
to have to accept that somebody else is going to have to help you do the things that you've always done yourself. And the older you get, the more that apparent becomes. And so I've been able to watch my uncle go through that, and that's helped me with a lot of things because, yeah, when they told me, like, look, you're never going to lead troops in combat again, it felt like a personal insult,
Yeah.
that I wasn't capable of doing the thing that I was so proud to be doing. But ultimately, now 15 years later, I can look at it and almost 15 years and say that was the right decision because I'm having memory issues.
Yeah.
I'm having these things that would have potentially gotten myself and others into a situation that could have been my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Like serious injury or worse. Yeah. I
Yeah.
could just I
Well, and
can't
they and
even
they told
imagine,
me
man.
they told me really clearly. They said, our biggest concern, I have what's called intrusive memories. So
Right.
if you read a list the easiest way to explain it is the way that they test for it. So if you read a list of 20 words to me over and over again, eventually I'll be able to remember 14 of them. And I'll knowingly forget three, but I will
Right.
honestly remember three words that you never read to me. So it's like my brain realizes something belongs in that box. It's like, F it, I'll throw this
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And so if you're in the shit, if you're in Iraq, Afghanistan, some combat zone, and you're receiving information on the fly over the radio or whatever, and I'm repeating that information back incorrectly, that could be very hazardous. And so they definitely made the right decision, whether I liked it at the time or not.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that you mention your uncle and his age and knowing eventually that you're going to have to take care of yourself. A lot of people that I know don't think that forward, especially like the people in my family. My mom never prepared to get old. Like, and she didn't get old. She died at 56, but she never really prepared to be old and have to take care of herself. And when I was in my mid 20s, she was calling me to do things for her that I could, if she would have just done a little bit more, she could have done for herself. And I think it's a pretty common thing with the boomer generation. No offense to any boomers out there, but I don't think there's a whole lot of them that prepared to get old, you know? And it,
Mhm.
it brought, when you were talking about that, it brought up for me, like, over the last several years, I've been kind of focusing more on being more independent as I get older and kind of looking at things like eventually I won't be independent. Eventually I will have to depend on other people to take care of me. And it's really interesting that you brought that up because like we've been baking our own bread. We've been, trying to take care of ourselves a little bit more health wise. And we've also been preparing a little bit better for like I'm a big believer in you should prepare for the seasons. Like winter time comes, if we don't have heat, we're gonna die. So
Yeah.
I always make sure I've got, fuel, a way to heat if I run out of fuel, a way to heat past fuel. Um, uh, f- all kinds of I prepare like I live out in the middle of nowhere and I'm going to be stuck at home for months. I prepare like
Great.
that. And I live in the middle of a city. I'm about an hour north of Kansas City, and
Mhm.
it's people look at me kind of strange sometimes, and I explain to them like you got to be ready. There's no. I'm not like a hardcore prepper, like end of the world type, scenario, but I have a couple weeks of food on hand, and if the power goes out, like up when we were off air, we talked about like my studio here, and I have a grow tent over here. Without power, I'm gonna lose the ability to grow. So I always have backup power, and it just blows my mind how some people don't prepare even for power outages and stuff like this, especially if they're in the middle of a city. How do you do a lot of like survival type training or anything like that still?
No, I am of a similar mindset. I have solar panels, not necessarily because I'm concerned that the grid's going to go down, but because I basically locked in my power rates for the next 30 to 60 years when the rates seem to
Right.
be going up, right? I do grow some vegetables. I keep a good amount of food on hand, especially meat in the freezer. But as soon as you lose power, where's that meat going, right?
Right.
Um, so I try to be prepared. Yeah, I'm not really prepared to be uh off the grid for more than a month. If we had, we got a potential hurricane coming in right now, and that could make our neighborhood lose power and all the things. So we'll be okay, right? We won't be the ones that are running to the grocery store to buy all the milk and all the toilet paper and so on, like the world's going to end tomorrow. But I'm not exactly preparing for a disaster that most likely won't come either.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm kind of the same. Like I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be, but I'm prepared enough. If something
There
happens,
was there was a TV show not long ago called Preppers or Doomsday
Yeah,
Preppers or something
yeah.
like that,
Doomsday
and it
preppers.
was fun. Yeah, it was fun to watch and it was kind of entertaining. But I think if you learned anything from it, it's that you can't be prepared for everything,
Right.
right? Because they would find these people who specialized in one big catastrophic event that might happen and how they were preparing for that event, right?
Yeah.
But that event is very likely not going to happen. Something may happen, right? And you
Yeah.
want to generally be prepared for something to happen. But I'm not exactly building a house in a missile silo either.
Yeah, because I mean, it does become like a way of life at that point. You know, you got to,
Mhm.
if you're storing 30 years worth of food, you got to constantly keep up on that. You got to constantly keep up on the supplies that you're going to need, medicines and stuff like that. Can you imagine having to rotate a 30-year stock of medicines that you don't take? You know, and every couple months you're just going to be chucking some in the trash, and I can't do that. You know. But the way I grew up in Missouri, and we know how to. It's kind of like that old was it Hank Williams Jr. song? You know, what was the name of that song? Country Boy Can Survive. That's right. I'm not really a country boy, but I know how to survive. I know how to fish. I know how to hunt. I know how to grow my own food and stuff like that. So if the shit hits the fan in that direction, I don't think in the event of like a societal collapse, I really don't think it'll be that bad. Um, I
Yeah.
think your major cities and your major cities and your population centers, those are going to be, pretty bad because people don't have grocery stores. They're going to be trying to eat each other. But if you can back out and get away from those type of areas, you probably won't even notice.
That you won't notice, right? You may not notice because you've
Right.
taken the appropriate steps, but how quickly the supply chain falls apart might surprise you, right?
Yeah.
When the grocery store's not getting new food, it goes real quick,
Yeah.
and then what do you do?
Yeah, and then that's interesting because it does happen. It does happen really, really quickly. So in Kansas City, they have a city-owned grocery store, and it didn't take very long. The shelves are all empty on that. If when a big storm comes, we live in a city of a population of 75, 80,000, give or take. When a storm comes, and it doesn't even have to be like storm of the century type storm, but when a storm comes, you go to the store and all the shelves are empty. There's no rock salt, there's no bread, there's no milk, there's no eggs. But they run out of stuff, and it usually doesn't take but a couple days to get restocked, but that's a couple days where they don't have necessary items. So you're absolutely right on that. Um, so tell me, like, what do you said before we started recording, you said you work in a gym or you own a gym?
So I own an executive protection business, private security, but executive protection is a borderline pretentious way of saying bodyguarding. So I own Leftwich Global Protective Services, which does that, and then my very close friend who I taught with at Quantico has had the dream for years of owning his own gym, and so last Memorial Day we started Honor Bound Fit in the parking lot of Black Rifle Coffee.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love coffee, man. Are you a coffee drinker?
yeah. I drink coffee. I drink coffee. I drink tea. I drink if it's fluid, I probably drink it.
That's one thing that I would probably go out of my way to go grab if the shit hit the fan, is coffee.
Yeah.
Because I don't stock up. I drink so much coffee that I stock up 2 weeks at a time, but not really any more than that because it gets too expensive. But yeah, that's one of the first things I'd be going out and getting as much coffee as I can get. And I really don't care. At that point, it wouldn't really bother me what brand it was, but my favorite brand is Starbucks whole bean coffee, and I get it from I get it from Target of all places. But it just whole bean coffee, and that way, and I don't even drink out of a coffee maker, so I don't have to have power to drink my coffee. I drink my coffee out of a French press, and really all you got to do is heat your water, pour it in, let it sit for a few minutes, and plunge it, and then you got coffee. So, um, and I didn't really realize that at the time when I first started drinking French press coffee. I was like, well, I'm gonna I'm gonna try this because it's a new thing. My wife was like, "Hey, you got to try this French press coffee." I guess it's not new, but it was new to me. And I was like, that sounds awesome. And we started making it. I cannot drink coffee any other way now. So,
We
but
uh we spent a week at a all-inclusive adults only resort in the Dominican Republic last November, and we got hooked on Dominican coffee. I'll never drink coffee the same way again.
so tell me a little bit more about that.
It's just smoother. It's got a very rich flavor, and I do the same thing. I'll put it in a French press, and that it's just I've never you don't realize until you stop drinking coffee out of K cups and so on what you're missing, right? You don't know what you're missing until you try
Right.
really good coffee.
Right. And that's the thing, man. I used to drink Folgers, right? And now that's the worst coffee I could get now is Folgers. And I used to drink that fine ground coffee in the drip coffee maker. I like my coffee black, so it's like sludge. Like the darker, the better. And my wife likes to, joke around. It's like motor oil. She's like, "This stuff is thick," and I'm like, "That's the way I like it. I'm sorry, you know." And for me, it's the flavor, the full bodiedness. And you just can't get that out of a drip coffee maker. And so I consider myself a bit of a coffee snob.
Yeah. I'm not a coffee snob. I do know what I like, and I typically drink coffee black. Sometimes, depending on the day of the week, I may put a tablespoon of honey or a shot of bourbon in it. But most of the time, it's just black coffee. Um, I'm not a coffee snob. I am a bit of a. I've recently discovered I'm a martini snob, and I didn't realize that. Uh, I just have this problem. I don't think I'm a snob, but I don't think you should be able to shit in a martini glass and call it a shitini, right? A martini is either vodka or gin with vermouth, and that's it, right? You
Right.
garnish it with an olive. But when you start putting colored whatever and flavored this and flavored that, it's not a martini. And if you
It,
can't drink it without a cup of olive juice in it, then you don't actually like martinis. That's all.
yeah, that's like when they started flavoring Crown Royal. Crown Royal is my favorite whiskey, and I it it's so smooth and tasty. And then they started flavoring it, and I was like, well, that's pretty good, but it's not near as good as the original. The original almost tastes like cookies to me. So, you
Every
know,
once in a while, I'll try a new one because they had like a blackberry Crown Royal or something like that. And so I'll
yeah,
try it. But then the older I get, the less I want to try limited release products. And
yeah,
Doritos is what I figured out, right? And it is because I've always struggled with my weight. I'm an
me
easy
too.
grower, right? I put on muscle and fat exceptionally easy. And I'm aware of that. And so I don't eat Doritos, but every once in a while I'll see like Korean barbecue Doritos. I'm like, I gotta try it,
Right,
I gotta try it. But then it's just one more thing I can't have. So why do I even bother? You know what I mean?
right. I learned something
My girlfriend,
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my girlfriend recently found a gin that she likes. She's always looking for a gin she likes because she doesn't like gin. And she found one that she likes, and it's a limited release. I'm like, that was dumb. You should have done that. Now you can't, it's just another thing you can't have.
Man, I so identify with that. It's kind of like so I used to like the McRib. I hate it now, but the McRib was limited release, and that's how they get you. They're like, here, we're only going to put this out for a limited time, and you better
Well,
come get
I
it
don't
now.
think it's a conspiracy. I don't think they do it because they're trying to get you hooked and that kind because people only want what they can't have. I do think
Right,
it has a lot to do with how much pork is available at the time. I
right,
actually, for a guy who doesn't like to eat McDonald's, I respect the hell out of McDonald's because I'm a business geek.
yeah,
And, you know, say what you want about McDonald's. When was the last time a McDonald's got shut down for E. coli?
yeah,
Uh, the food may be highly processed and all that, but the double quarter pounder cheese you get in Fredericksburg, Virginia, is exactly the same one you get in Los Angeles, minus whatever the idiots hired to work there do to it. But yeah, I think McDonald's is an insane corporation because they wanted to change. So one of their head chefs wanted to change the breading recipe when they were doing chicken strips,
Yeah.
and he wanted to put celery seed in the seasoning. And they told him no, he couldn't do it. And it had nothing to do with allergens or anything like that. But there literally was not enough celery seed in the world to be able to manufacture the amount of chicken strips that they sell with that
That's
recipe.
insane.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
insane.
you think about the number of chickens that give their lives to McDonald's every day. Um, it's insane. People don't know that McDonald's is the biggest buyer and seller of apples in the world. You don't associate McDonald's with
Really?
apples, but just
No,
about every
but
Happy
they
Meal
got
has
Happy
apples in it.
Meals. Yeah.
Yep.
That's insane. That's crazy. So, do you watch The Fat Electrician?
I love that electrician. Nick is, I hope to meet him soon.
Me too. Me too. I'd love to meet that guy because he's hilarious. I turned so many people onto his content because
Sure.
it's it really is like almost everyman content. He makes stuff that's so easy to understand. And I watch all of his stuff, like all of it.
Mhm.
And he's so hilarious. Like he's so funny and it's so smart. He does a lot of research for his videos. And actually, I learned a lot of things, about other things from his channel. I like Aldi. Aldi is one of my
Yeah.
favorite stores, and
Yeah.
he did a video about Aldi and Chick-fil-A was another one. I was very surprised by the Chick-fil-A video, and he says, Chick-fil-A did something very smart. They were like, um, we're gonna just do the best chicken sandwich that we can possibly do. We're not gonna have a bunch of these limited time items, and we're not gonna have a bunch of burgers or new things to try out. We're just gonna do the best damn chicken sandwich we could do, and it was a successful model. So
Yeah,
I
more
absolutely,
businesses need to understand the power of having a simple menu with
yes,
limited offerings. They do limited releases at Chick-fil-A, but they don't have, yeah, they'll never do burgers. They'll never do
yeah.
things outside of the things that they do really, really well.
Right. And I don't even care for Chick-fil-A, but yeah, I gotta respect that.
Sure.
And as the same thing with Aldi and stores like Aldi, it was built for efficiency, which is why I like it. It has really
I
nothing to
think I
do with
think
the
the one I
prices.
I think the one that really got me going, because you mentioned Starbucks earlier. I'm not a Starbucks fan, but as a consumer, but I'm a huge fan of them as a business now because of the Fat Electrician.
That's awesome. Any people I can talk to that watch that content or identify with that content, they're my kind of people because
Mhm.
he is just absolutely hilarious. But
I
my
live with I
favorite,
live with four women, my girlfriend and our daughters, and they get so annoyed with me because they want to listen to whatever music they want to listen to in the car. I don't like listening to music because it feels like a waste of time to me. Like I've heard this song 32 dozen
yeah,
times. I want something interesting. I want something new and different. And so I'm constantly listening to podcasts and YouTube channels and so on while I drive, and they hate it.
yeah.
But they do like Nick.
I think my family thinks it's kind of boring. So like my wife is into it. Like she's my editor, so she kind of has to watch my podcast. But I'm watching or listening to podcasts pretty much all day long, and I think the biggest reason why is like 'cause I like to learn, man. To be honest
Yeah,
with you, I like to learn,
yeah.
and I do watch some content that gets repetitive, like Joe Rogan. He talks about fights and comedy and stuff like that, and but I always walk away with something that I didn't know before I listened. So I love to learn, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I like podcasts and content like the Fat Electrician. And for me, it's more about like you said, it's not a it is a waste of time kind of when you're looking for a waste of time, but ultimately you can listen to podcasts while you're doing other things and keep your mind off of whatever's bothering you that day or whatever problems you have.
Depends on what the other thing is, right? If I'm building something in the garage or the driveway, if I'm, building a bookcase or whatever, I'm listening to a podcast. If
Right.
I have to work on something creative
Right.
or if I'm running payroll, I can't listen and do math at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to rewind it because I didn't actually listen to anything that was being talked about, you know?
Yeah, in those type of situations I usually throw on something that I've heard before.
Mhm.
Or one of my favorites that like an older video that I've already seen or something like that. And I find that a lot too. I have real bad ADHD, so paying attention to two things at once isn't my forte, but I try. But
Very singularly focused anyway, right? We were over thousands of years we've evolved to hunt and build things, and so we do one thing at a time really well. Unlike women who were typically caring for children and
right,
other women and the elderly, et cetera, it had to be focused on 12 things at once. And none of them were hopefully going to kill them, right? So
right.
they can be much more open to doing three or four different things at once than men can.
I did not know that. That's interesting. So your shirt there says embrace the ruck. And so I before we met up and everything, I know that you do Guide on 22, which is a 22-mile ruck march. And tell me a little bit about that and the cause behind it.
Yeah, so we do rucks as a gym. We do rucks every month, and they're a progressive series, right? So the idea was, are you familiar with the Reverent Warriors?
No.
Irreverent Warriors is a really cool organization, and they organize these silky hikes. And the silky hikes are designed to bring veterans together, and they inspire humor and camaraderie to try to prevent veteran suicide.
Right.
And it's a really cool organization, really cool cause. We do it a bit differently because we want the whole audience to come out for our rucks, right? We're still
Right.
trying to prevent veteran suicide, but we're trying to talk to the larger community about it. And so when most people hear 22 miles with 22 pounds, that sounds a bit out of reach for most people, right?
Right.
And it's not really. I mean, we do it at a 3 mile an hour pace. We do 3 to 5 miles, every hour we stop. Um, so it's very approachable, right? But it sounds intimidating to most people.
Right.
And so in order to get our gym members and our local community ready for it, we start with 6 miles in February and we work up to 22 miles throughout the year. And it's cool to watch people because they'll start in February or March and they are intimidated by 22 miles where they're not capable of 22 miles. And so to
Yeah.
watch them progress and get more and more comfortable with it is fun to watch. But it is to prevent veteran suicide. We call it Guide on 22. The symbolism with 22 is back in 2012, the most widely reported and widely accepted statistic around veteran suicide is that 22 veterans are committing suicide every day.
That's
And
insane,
that's
man.
that's a huge number, and it's terrible. Now that number fluctuates every year. Right now, I think the last data is from 2022, and it's 17 and a half.
Yeah, that's still way too
Still,
many.
yeah, any is too many, right? But um, we're not going to change. We're not going to adopt. We're not going to abandon the number because it's really just a symbol now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, um, and so we do 22 pounds, 22 miles on November 22nd for veteran suicide prevention. And we try to bring out everyone who gives a shit basically is who I'm inviting out to Guide on 22. But we also invite families who have lost their veteran, and we give them an opportunity to talk about their loss and how it's affected them and their community and that kind of thing. And it's just a really cool event. And It's the only ruck that we sell tickets for
Yeah.
and take in an income on. But all of that money goes to an organization called Heroes Bridge, which is a really cool veteran service organization here in Virginia. They work primarily with elderly veterans from like the Korean War, Vietnam War, et cetera. Um, and they do a really cool thing where they do a buddy program. So they take like OIF, OEF vets who are my age, and they pair them up with these Korean Vietnam War vets, and they help each other get to appointments. They share war stories and just hang out together. It's really cool to have somebody to that you can relate with, but it's a different kind of relation, right?
Yeah.
They're also building a retirement community strictly for veterans, which I think sounds cool, but it's also like I lived in the barracks and it sounds dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
we'll
was I was
see.
thinking that like that sounds sweet, but who's
Yeah.
going to be looking
I
after
lived
these
I lived in the
fellas?
barracks in Kaneohe Bay where it was not completely uncommon to see somebody get taped up between two mattresses and thrown over the third deck rail of the barracks. So,
And and that's just Tuesday for you guys, you know?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, that's man, I admire that mission, man. That's
I
it
was
means a lot to
challenged
me.
recently. So I'm on the local leadership team for Reverend Warriors here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area. And the DC leader, her name is Kim, she challenged me because I used to tell everybody, it's 22 miles with 22 pounds on November 22nd for veteran suicide awareness. And she said, is it
Yeah.
veteran suicide awareness or veteran suicide prevention? And that struck me because nobody had asked me that question before. And to me, I think it feels very audacious to say we're going to end veteran suicide. We're going to
Yeah.
prevent veteran suicide. At the same time, so I don't want to talk shit about other organizations at all,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I completely get it.
there's an organization that takes in millions of dollars in donations every year and grants and so on, and it's a breast cancer cause, right? And
Yeah.
they make millions of dollars and they don't put a dime towards breast cancer research. And when you ask them why they don't do that, their answer is, well, we do breast cancer awareness.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, when the whole NFL is wearing pink in October,
Yeah.
mission fucking accomplished, man. I think everybody knows, right? So I think you
Right.
can hang it up and quit, right?
Yeah.
And to have that thought process, I would love to not have to do God on 22, right? I would
Yeah.
love to not have to do this 5 years from now because it's Guide on zero, right? That'd
Right.
be great. But you know, it's
It's a
it's
cause
probably
near
not
and
gonna.
dear. It's a cause near and dear to my heart. I have a buddy. He's not very close with me, but he was with other family members. His name's Todd Nicely. You may have heard of him. He was one of the. I think it was like one of. He was like one of a few modern quadruple amputees that came out of Afghanistan, and
Sounds really familiar. I don't know if I knew him.
um, he. Man, I'm getting a little emotional. You know,
Let it flow, brother. I'm a big crybaby bitch most of the time when I talk about
me
this kind of
too.
stuff. So
Me too. He attempted to take his life, and he survived, luckily, and he's actually got a big social media presence now, and he's doing good. But those were some dark times, dark days for him. He didn't
sure.
know. He went away, and when he came home, he didn't have a purpose, is what he said. And it's so rough to to imagine what these guys are going through, because a lot of us, we can't even imagine, what these guys have seen, what these guys have been through, what you've seen, what you've been through. I can't even I can't even begin to imagine. And you talking about slush funds, and that's what it is. There's a bunch of slush funds, and that's a big reason why do not I don't donate to very many causes anymore, unless it's like a straight up like cash drive thing that they're doing, because it does cost money to pay people, and the largest campaigns in the nation are just giant slush funds where only a small percentage actually makes it to the cause. Every time we have a disaster and they put on the TV, you know, donate $10 via your phone bill and stuff like that. A lot of people do donate, but none of that money makes it to the actual cause. And that's why I respect you and what you're saying, is because that money actually makes it to where it needs to go.
Sure. Um, you said a lot there. I want to back up to you said that he felt like he lost his purpose, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of veterans are committing suicide or becoming homeless. So I just say, removing themselves from society through either
Yeah.
homelessness or suicide, right? We have 14 core values on the wall in our gym, and we put it on the back of our shirts and all over the place. And one of them is be useful. And that one I think is the most important to this cause because, you said, you talked about combat. I don't think a lot of guys are removing themselves from society from what they experienced in combat. I was in a shit ton of combat and
It's
I
what they
miss it.
experience. From what I know and the people I talk to, has a lot to do with what happens to them when they come home and what they're missing out
So
on.
I genuinely miss combat. I miss being in an arena where you get to be singularly focused and nothing outside of what you're doing right this moment counts, right? I think a lot of veterans miss that. But when you go from, when you're active duty military, especially on the front lines, no one disrespects you. We have a love-hate relationship with law enforcement officers based on our experience
Yeah.
or the way we were raised or whatever. Everybody pretty much loves firefighters. I don't think anybody seems to give a shit about EMTs, which I think also have a huge suicide prevalence.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
I mean, those poor guys, they sit in the back of a truck and eat their pain away because they're scraping brains off of pavement on a daily basis. They don't get calendars, they don't get holidays. At least veterans, we get Memorial Day, we get Veterans Day, we get recognized for what we do, right? And I think
Yeah.
when you go from living with an undoubtable purpose, you know exactly why you're here and what you're doing, and you're proud of it, and everyone else is proud of you for it and then to come home and you can't get a job bagging groceries because you're overqualified, right?
Yes. Yes.
When you leave the military, you give up two things, whether you recognize it at the time or not. You lose your tribe and you lose your purpose.
Yeah.
And so the other symbolism behind Guidon 22 is that Guidon. I don't know if you know what a Guidon looks like, but it's a standard, it's a flag, and it represents the unit that you belong to.
Yeah.
And before modern communications, before we had radios on the battlefield, we had guidons, we had flags, and it was the OG way of saying, I'm here, I've got your back, right?
Yeah.
And so that's part of why we call it Guidon 22. The other thing is that, when it's the status quo right now is to get out of the military and be perfectly okay with saying, what, I'm going to use my DD-214 as rolling paper and I'm going to check out from society and play video games for the rest of my life and just live on disability. And those are the guys I think that are most likely to remove themselves from society because they don't
Yeah.
look for a new tribe, they don't look for a new purpose, and eventually they just feel useless, right? And that's why people are checking out is because they don't find a new purpose. And so what we're saying is that guy who's just going to play video games and check out from society
Yeah.
is not who stood on the yellow footprints. It's not the guy who rose his hand and swore to defend the Constitution. So remember who you were, who you still are. Go home to your home of record, or stay in the community that you served in. If you're stationed wherever and you decide you want to stay there, that's fine. But find a new cause, find a
Yeah.
guide on, find a way to be a role model, and carry the standard forward. And so
Man,
that's
that's
that's the that's the
that's
thought
a
process behind the name, so to speak.
that's Man, I got goosebumps, brother. It's talking about this, man. When you're talking about losing your community, losing your brothers, and not really losing them, like when you leave the military or when you get transferred or you lose that sense of camaraderie with your guys. I think that's actually very important. We're as humans, we're not supposed to be alone. We were never supposed to be alone. And when you're in the military, it's you and a bunch of other people, and you all have to look out for one another. So it becomes a community, a brotherhood. And I know there's women in the military, obviously too. So we're not going to exclude uh, those people. It's when you do come home and you like you're saying you if you want to sit around and play video games, those type of people, like, they're probably pretty lonely, I would think.
Yeah.
And that's I don't like being lonely. So I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I've been a stay-at-home dad for about 11 years now. And or like right now, I have the podcast. I'm talking to you today, but when we get off the podcast, I'm going to be by myself for the next few hours. And it's kind of rough sometimes because like I said, we're not really supposed to be alone all the time. But for like the last 11 years, man, I've watched my circle go from, great big to, dwindling down and small, smaller, smaller. And now it's just like really the only people I talk to on a daily basis is my kids and my wife. And that
It's
sucks
now you're going to
sometimes.
make me go on a rant, brother. So we talked earlier about my uncle, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And how I watch the people in my life that I really respect and how they deal with life and obstacles and so on. Well, what you just described, you know, when you choose to leave the military or don't choose, right? I was forced out, but
right.
uh, yeah, you sort of alienate sometimes, and compare that to being a senior citizen, right? Because
Yeah,
eventually, whether you like it or not, all your friends are going to pass away, right?
yeah,
Either you're going to be the first to go, or you're going to start losing your friends because we all expire at some point, right?
right.
I think a major mistake that we've made as a society
I know where you're
is
going with this.
isolating our elderly, right? We
Yeah,
put them. It's not exactly isolation when you put them in a retirement home, but I think it was right around World War II when we decided, we need to have a bigger home and we want two cars in the garage and a huge TV and so on and so forth. So, in order for that to happen, mom has to go to work,
yep,
right? So now mom and dad are both working, and that was okay at first because we still had our grandparents in the home. And
yeah.
then we started shoving our grandparents into retirement homes. And so now who's raising our children? The same people that we fought in World War II, the socialists and communists, are now the people who are educating our children through TV and public schools. It's not paying dividends for us at all, right?
Yeah, I just sent my wife the other day. She had never heard that Yuri Bezmenov uh, interview that he was
Yeah.
talking about ideological subversion. She had never heard that, so I sent it to her, and because she was like, "Who's Yuri Bezmenov?" And I was like, "Really? You never heard of Yuri Bezmenov?" I said, "He's one of the reasons why I don't like putting the kids in public school." And I just don't have the money to take them out of public school, or I would. But ideological subversion is a huge issue, and the ironic thing is communists and socialists, they are community minded people, that it's communism, community.
Mhm.
It's the root word in communism. I speak to so many people that don't understand that that is exactly what's been going on to this country for the last 30 years, ideological subversion. Since 1991, before 1991, when the Soviet Union fell, it was already starting, and
Sure.
they infiltrated our institutions and were educating people that way. And then what happens when those people become educators, right? They don't know any
Yeah.
different now. There's no
Yep.
it's been it's a process that only takes about 10 years, and it's been 30 since, or no, it's been 40 years, so it's crazy to think about those kind of things. And I think that the country is starting, the United States is starting to kind of self-correct that a little bit. Our kids, like I've got a 21-year old, a 21-year old and a 22-year old. They're out on their own, and they can't make it, man. Financially, it's really hard for them. And I know when people say, that stop drinking your Starbucks and avocado toast, my kids cannot afford Starbucks and avocado toast. They have to pay their rent, you know, and their rent is almost twice as high as my house payment. And it's so ridiculous. When we started putting focuses on kicking the kids out at 18, and not living with mom and dad for into your 20s, and not taking care of each other, you're exactly right. After World War II, when mom went to work, it actually started during World War II, when all the men went to war and a lot of them didn't come back. we
Sure.
had to have we had to have people fill those vacancies, for a lack of a better term. I know that's kind of insensitive, but we had to have people to fill those vacancies, and Rosie the Riveter did her job. And then it became a social thing that women, and then the feminism movement, equal rights and all that stuff. I believe women should have equal rights, but I think feminism, they're fighting to do equal, they're fighting for equal outcomes, not equal treatment. So it's,
Well, I think the biggest problem with modern feminism, I think most of the women who are really passionate about modern feminism or ultra modern or whatever phase of feminism we're in now, is that they all clearly have daddy issues, right? Because if they were
yeah,
raised by a strong man, they would realize that, like, I love my daughters, I love my mom, I love the women around me. Why would I want less for them? No,
right.
no good man wants less for any woman around them. So, we talk about the patriarchy and all this type of stuff. Well, the patriarchy came out of a need, right?
Yeah.
We had to live together. We had to support each other, and men took the leadership role. But the patriarchy, or whatever you want to call it, it wasn't designed to oppress women. It was designed to keep us alive, right?
Yeah.
Life hasn't always been this easy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Try telling that to the Gen Zers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's financially difficult for the Gen Zers, and finding jobs is ridiculously hard for them. Even education is ridiculously hard for them. But I don't, uh, I don't see a whole lot of suffering, in the United States, even though there's even our
Our
poor.
poorest people are dying of obesity.
Exactly. I was just getting ready to say that our poor people are fat. It's, um, I was just looking in social media the other day, and they were talking about homeless, the homeless situation and stuff like that. Even our homeless people in the United States, I know that they're starving people. I know crime and addiction and all that. I know those are all issues, but
There are
they,
issues, but I think
yeah,
where we get it wrong is they're not money issues,
right.
right?
Yes.
You hear people talk about, oh, well, we did this, but we could have used that money. We spent X amount of money on problem Y when we could have used it to build Z amount of houses for the homeless.
Yeah.
No amount of money is going to fix the homeless problem,
Right.
because it's not a money problem, it's a purpose problem.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have any value. I feel like people would be better off without me, so I'm going to go live in the woods. It's
Yeah.
got nothing to do with not being able to make a living. Anyone can make a living in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It may be
what
hard. It's going to have challenges, right? But you'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's upward mobility is not as easy to obtain in the United States as it once was. And I see a lot of Gen Zers stuck in their current job roles or um, not being able to have the time to take off work to find other employment. Or, a big part of the problem is none of them want to learn. That's a huge problem. As soon as we get out of high school, for me, it was earlier than that. I didn't graduate high school, but most of us are like, "Oh, yay, we're done with school. We don't have to learn anymore." And I'm at 40 years old. Uh, I learn for entertainment, and I mean, it's kind of weird sometimes, I guess. But for real, I do. I learn for entertain. I like it. I seek out information. I seek out stuff that I don't know. I come across something on social media or YouTube or something that piques my interest. I look into it. I don't know very many Gen Zers that are like that. As a matter of fact, my son, he's 21. He'll call me to ask a question that he could have just looked up on Google. It's one of those things that I'm like, son, you got to experience things for yourself. You've got to do things on your own. I'm here if you get stuck, but I mean, you probably should at least attempt to to figure it out.
My girlfriend is fond of telling our daughters, ask three before me, right?
There you go.
Google it, go pick up a book, whatever, then come ask me if you can't find the answer, right?
That's right. That's right. Now that's actually a very good way to conduct research is you find um, three different sources that say the same thing. There you go. That's a great
Oh.
way to conduct research. I don't do a whole lot of research anymore, but I like to read and all kinds of stuff. I love to learn, and I think I like my 21-year-old son. He he loves to watch like educational things, I guess, on YouTube and stuff like that. But when it comes time to answer his own questions, it's a little difficult to get him to use that problem solving part of his brain. And I think that's my fault because when I was raising him up, I didn't always have the most patience with him. And instead of making him do things on his own, I would just kind of just get in there and do it to make it easier for myself instead of him. And I kind of did him a disservice by doing that. But I'm every day trying and learning and being a better father than I was the day before. So
Yeah, I think that's something we talk about in the gym a lot. Or, we go as a very small gym. We go and participate in events all over the community, right? We'll set up a table for our gym at Cigar and Bourbon Festival or
yeah,
Mac and Cheese Festival or at a local, Oktoberfest or whatever. You don't expect to see a gym there, right? So we meet all kinds of people, and they'll tell me that, the reason they don't need a gym right now is because I have a gym in my garage or I have a gym in my basement or my apartment has a gym or whatever. I say, all right, well, how do you develop your programming? Like, what do you decide how you're going to lift today or whatever? And they'll say, oh, well, I get it off an app or I find it on the internet or whatever. And I said, so what you're actually telling me is that you probably don't do those things. You probably do the same thing you've always done because you enjoy doing it, right?
yeah,
We all love to do what we're good at. And so you do the same lifts over and over again, and you never work on the stuff you hate to do because you hate to
yeah,
do it, right?
yeah,
And so there's a certain amount of personal responsibility in making sure that you are working on the things that you need to develop because you're weak in those skills. And sometimes you need to get it from somebody else and be
yeah,
willing to hear from other people like, hey, you really suck at this, right?
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Get comfortable
and
being uncomfortable.
yeah,
That's a big thing. I think that would help everybody is actually like I am we talk about so I am all up in arms about our dependence on China and consumerism is at an all-time ridiculous high. And I'm trying to teach my kids out of consumerism because I was one of those type of dads. We had to have the newest thing, the best thing. And there are certain things that you don't want to cheap out on. You get what you pay for. There are some things, but I got a 20-year-old POS car out in the driveway. It's leaking oil all over the driveway. I don't plan on getting rid of it until it blows up. And then when it does blow up, I'm gonna go get another one just like it because it was cheap and it's reliable, it's dependable. It's an '05 Crown Vic, so those cars
Yep.
are tanks pretty much,
Yep.
and it runs real well, and it's only got 147,000 miles on it, so I don't see it breaking down anytime soon. So I'm just gonna roll with it until the wheels fall off of it, and people aren't like that, man. They would
No.
much rather go out and get a $800 to $1,000 a month car payment or truck payment and be look nice to their neighbors, and look great for when they're pulling up in the parking lot at work. But, those people are, unless you can afford it, if you can afford $1,000 a month to spend on a truck, by all means, I guess, go ahead. But
Well, I think there's a certain amount of security, whether it's actually there or not, in the idea
yeah.
behind having a new vehicle that the
Oh, for
dealership will
sure, for
always
sure.
take care of, et cetera, et cetera. But my last three vehicles have all been roughly 3-year-old Ford Explorers that used to be police cars,
Yeah.
because I can get them at a great value, right? I can get
Yeah.
a $12,000 Ford Explorer with twin turbo with 65,000 miles. Like that's exactly what I want, right? So my
Right.
last three vehicles have been that purchase. But I think what you're talking about is another one of our core values. It's compare yourself not to others, but to who you were yesterday,
There
right?
you go. Yes, yes.
Are
Yeah.
are you a fan of Dennis Prager? Are you familiar with Dennis Prager?
Never heard of them.
He's I would call him an intellectual. You've probably heard of PragerU or Prager University. They
Yeah, I
put
think
a
so.
bunch of videos out on YouTube. Great organization, and Dennis Prager's a really admirable guy. You had a conversation with, is it Angela Cartwright? She's a
Caldwell.
family
Caldwell,
Caldwell,
Angel. Yeah.
yeah. And you were talking about family dynamics and disagreeing politically with each other and that kind of thing. And one of the reasons that Dennis Prager is so well respected on both sides of every aisle is because he doesn't go into debates with the intent to win. He's
Yeah.
never sought out a gotcha moment or tried to, you know, uh, prove somebody was wrong about something or call them any kind of names or anything like that. He genuinely goes into every conversation with the intent to better understand the person he's talking to. If
Right.
you disagree with me, I want to better understand why you think that way.
Right.
And I think that's a great way to go into 90% of the conversations you have with other people. But he also, I brought him up because he has a book called The Problem with Happiness.
Okay.
And he talks about how you'll never be happy from something that you can buy or a goal that you've set. We try to chase happiness, we try to achieve happiness, and you can't. You can't achieve it, you can't find it, you can't buy it because real happiness is built on a foundation of gratitude. If you're not grateful for the things that you have and the things that you've done and the people in your life, you'll never be happy. No
Yeah,
matter how
I
new
have
your
this.
truck is or how big your house is, it ain't there.
Yeah, I have this conflict in my head all the time, man, when I'm dissatisfied or upset or just having a bad day. I have this conflict in my head, right? I look at my life objectively most of the time. I try. I look at my life. I have a great life, man. I don't I don't have to work a normal job. My job is to take care of my kids. That's it. Like that's literally the extent of my job. Take care of the kids, do the laundry every once in a while, take out the trash, clean up after the cats. That's my job. Those are dad things to do.
So,
The my kids don't ride the bus because I'm home all the time. We can drive them. So that's what we do. And I have this conflict in my head when I'm upset that why am I upset? Because really honestly, my life is great. What the do I have to be upset about? And most of the time when I am upset, it's temporary. It's a very temporary feeling. I'm usually overwhelmed by noise or um too many bills, too much month at the end of my money kind of thing. Sometimes that happens, or it's just some minor irritation. The kids are pissing me off or whatever. And then comes that conflict in my head where I'm like, what the hell am I bitching about? Seriously, let's just smoke a joint, calm down, and kind of relax a little bit because life is good. Everything is great. And then it changes my perception and I'm able to get over it in about 5 minutes. I uh I say all the time we should look more at the things that we do have instead of the things that we don't have. Because if we
You know,
focus
my
more on
prescription for people who are depressed or upset with life, et cetera, is it's not fucking SSRIs, I'll tell you that much.
yeah,
But
me either. Me
you know,
either.
I tell them, I say, maybe at the end of the day, just try this, right? Because it's not going to cost you anything. It's not gonna affect the brain, the way your brain works with chemicals or whatever. But just try writing down every night three things that you feel like you accomplished and three things that you're grateful for. Fucking guarantee you, if you do that every night, you feel a lot better about life.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely changes your perception, for how bad you think your life really is. Like I tell my kids, sometimes when they're upset, like my kids are pretty happy kids, they are pretty happy most of the time. But I like to tell them sometimes, like when they're bitching, like think about those kids in China. They're over there eating rocks, dude. Like, and I'll show them videos of
When we were little, it was starving kids in Africa, remember?
yes, yes, Ethiopia. And believe it or not, there's still starving kids there. That's weird. We were just talking about money not
Not a money
fixing.
problem.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
not a money problem. It's a government problem, weirdly enough. Uh, when we like to take away, we like to fight over resources for some reason. There's enough resources in this world for everybody, but we like to
Do you
fight
remember
over.
Carly Fiorina?
No,
Carly Fiorina was my first choice for president in 2016. She was in the primaries for the Republican Party.
I'm gonna have to
And
look that up.
well, nobody remembers her, and that's part of why she didn't get elected to begin with. But she said something really profound in an interview after the elections. And she said, elections are won and lost on unresolved issues. And
Yeah.
that sounds like kind of a throwaway line if you don't really think about it. But what she was trying to say is that, both parties have spent millions of dollars and countless hours trying to figure out exactly how to win on a couple of subjects, whether it's gun control, abortion rights, uh, whatever government programs they are, et cetera. They've spent a shit ton of money and a shit ton of time figuring out exactly how to campaign on that issue. And
Yeah.
so if they fix that problem, what do they have to campaign on?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right? What's in it for them to fix the actual problem that they campaigned on? Because then they won't get reelected for that same issue they still haven't fixed.
Yeah, and we're seeing that with a certain political party without getting too political. I so I talk about politics all the time. Without getting too political, we see right now there's one particular party that wants to do too much, and then there's another party that doesn't want to do anything but fight the other party. And I think if we had people on both sides that would just walk up to each other in the middle and shake each other's hands and say, "Hey, let's stop fighting. Let's figure this out together. You know, I want this, you want that. Let's work on it. Let's figure something out." Nobody's talking to each other like that.
Yeah. Um, again, I think that's why people like Dennis Prager are so important, right? When you actually try to understand why the other person thinks the way they do instead of just get them stuck in a gotcha moment, et cetera, because it
Yeah.
does well on YouTube or whatever. Um,
Or having civil disagreements. That's
yeah.
that we you talked about that podcast I did with Angela Caldwell. We were talking about that too, as just
Mhm.
having civil discourse where you can look at each other like you and I'm sure there's probably a lot of things that we disagree on. But
Sure.
one of my strengths, I personally, I can look at things from all sides and I can hold two competing ideas in my head at the same time. Like there's probably some good about communism. I don't know what those things are, but I'm willing to listen. You know, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing good about socialism or communism. The only thing, Margaret Thatcher, I think, is who said it. The only problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. And that's
The
a big
problem
deal.
with the other problem with socialism is that yeah, when you run out of other people's money, it immediately turns into communism.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and
Um,
that actually we're kind of dealing with that right now. The government wants to take a stake in Intel. I think that's a very bad idea.
I don't know how to feel about the idea behind a public trust and the government using tax money to invest in private businesses because eventually there's no way to do it without picking winners, and that's
Yeah,
a dangerous, dangerous game.
yeah, and I think that's actually where we
I don't
are
know
with
if
the defense contractors.
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So there used to be.
If you're not familiar with Colonel Scheller, look him
Nope.
up.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, that this has been a
He
great
was the
conversation.
Marine. He was the Marine officer that was violently forced out of the Marine Corps because he came out against the Afghanistan withdrawal. And that's where you probably would have seen him is when he was on various news outlets and so on because he was court-martialed
What
for
was his
coming out
name again?
against Colonel Scheller. I think it's
Okay.
Chueller. Really cool guy. He's actually so one of the things that I actually really respect about this second Trump presidency is that he put a lot of people in the cabinet who he basically gave them a second chance at retribution. Because I mean, you look at a lot of people don't know a whole lot about our current Secretary of Defense,
I,
and
I love I love Pete Hegseth, man. He's a great
he's
guy.
great. I don't think there's anything to dislike about him. But if you know about his story, it makes it even more profound that he is the Secretary of Defense because he has been the same guy he is in terms of his values and so on for a long time.
Yeah,
And during remember when they put up all the fences around DC and called in the National Guard and all that?
yeah, yeah,
Uh, well, his unit was called up for that. And he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He went and did his job. And someone in his unit said, you know, Hegseth really shouldn't be here because he's a right-wing extremist. And that's why he got separated from the National
yeah.
Guard. Not because he did anything wrong. He did his job fully, but somebody labeled him as a right-wing extremist, and therefore he was kicked out. And so to put him back in charge of the entire military, I think is great. And it's the same thing he did with Colonel Scheller. He now works under Hegseth. And you can say the same thing about, sorry, I'm drawing a blank on names here, but our current Intel director.
Uh, Intel director Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah,
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 she was essentially harassed by the organization that she's now in
yeah.
charge of.
She
Isn't that
was,
great?
and she's awesome. She's
Yeah,
awesome. Like I okay.
yeah.
There's a few things that are
We're not going to
kind
get
of
into politics here.
right. Yeah. But she's awesome. I
Yeah.
listened to her on Joe Rogan's podcast several times, and she's just got great ideas, and she's got a great level head on her shoulders. I actually when they were bringing out the new administration, I seen a lot of trouble that they were having with Congress and all that, and I was like, I hope these people make it, especially Pete Hegseth. I really like that guy, and um, You know, he has kind of similar hair to Gavin Newsom, but he pulls it off. I really like Pete Hegseth's hair. He's got a great head of hair. But yeah, I listen. I watched him on I believe it was Sean Ryan, and everything just he hit all the points that I was like,
Mhm.
yes, yes. The only person I'm really not thrilled with, and he's doing an okay job, is Cash Patel. And the only reason is because this whole Epstein thing, it really bothers me. Really, really bothers me. And
Yeah, I think I could probably explain your position without you having to. And I don't think I've never heard you
yeah,
speak on this subject, but there's something to be said about there's no pleasant way to get rid of of someone who hurts children. I don't use the word evil often, but people who hurt children are evil, right? And so
yeah,
we all want to hold those people accountable. I'm not necessarily upset with Cash Patel or Pam Bondi or anyone who's in those positions, and I think only because I try to put myself in their position, right? I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I
right.
imagine that there's still a lot of work to be done and to arrest and convict and make sure that all the people who are on that list get the justice they deserve. You got to do a lot of legwork up front. And Trump's only been in office for 6 months, which means Cash has
Yeah,
only been in office for 3 or 4 months now, right? Like, so
yeah,
there's a process if you want to do it right. And we haven't had that much time to work on this problem.
yeah. When I saw him on Joe Rogan the last time, it just his demeanor uh, almost seemed like he was scared, almost intimidated, maybe.
So I don't remember who, I think I heard somebody else present this idea, or maybe I had it and then I heard somebody else say it, so I had confirmation bias or whatever. But I have to imagine that, all of our, for the big, uh, powerful countries, all of our intelligence operations work together, whether it's the
Yeah,
CIA, Mossad, MI6, et cetera. They all work together. They all share information. They all have information. And I don't know who's on that list, but I imagine they're from multiple countries, and I can see a situation where we want to release the Epstein list, and MI6 says, "Look, if you release that list with this name on it, we're going to release this information."
yeah,
And if Epstein was a CIA operative, if he was an asset to our intelligence agency, and how many presidents knew about it and allowed it to go on,
yeah,
that's just as evil in my opinion.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
I
and
think
that's
I
where
think
I am with.
we all want justice, but at what cost? And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out is how much are we willing to, you know, how much are we willing to harm our society in order to get this justice? We
Yeah.
all want it, but what's it going to cost? And I think people are trying to figure out how to mitigate that cost as much as possible.
I actually I agree. I absolutely agree. But I think the reason why it upsets me so much is because there's over the last few years it's been such a big deal, right? And then now all of a sudden we have to stop talking about it. It's not a big deal. It's a hoax. It's for me it's really about like, okay, but are the people that are involved in that case, are they still running are they still running the country? Are they still, do they still have jobs, and or are these people shut out of the governments? I don't think I don't think our current president, I don't think that I don't think he was that involved with Jeffrey Epstein, but I don't know. I really don't know. And I think that's the
We
biggest
don't want to give
issue.
people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll say
I
this,
do. I
right? So
do.
I've been saying for a lot longer than this whole Epstein thing that I think a lot of politicians campaign and make a handful of promises with every intent of making those promises come to reality.
That's right. Yeah.
And then they actually get into that seat and try to make things happen, and they become more informed as to exactly what that would involve, right?
Yeah.
President
2017 is a
Barack
perfect example.
well, President Barack Obama campaigned on closing Guantanamo, and I got really upset about that because me and a lot of my brothers went out of our way to take, prisoners instead of killing people who were shooting at us in order to get better intelligence and accomplish the mission more effectively. And so then
Yeah.
the idea of shutting down Guantanamo Bay and letting those guys go free really hurt my feelings a bit, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure Guantanamo Bay is still up and running.
Yes.
So, you know, it
As
happens
a
on
matter of
both
fact,
sides of the aisle.
I think they just expanded it not too long ago.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree with that. Now, our the things that have happened over the last 8 months have been nothing short of amazing. There's been a few movements that I never thought would happen. And I know people are against the big beautiful bill. But if you're a betting person, if like I'm not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, you are betting on America with that big beautiful bill. And then there's since the big beautiful bill came into play, we've signed trillions of deals with other countries, like trillions in deals. And it's pretty awesome. I can't there's not been any administration that I can think of that's ever done anything like what this one's we I talked negatively about Cash Patel. Let me say something great about him. The top 10 most wanted list. He cleared it within a month. He cleared the top 10 most wanted list in a month. And then he came out to the public and was transparent about it. He said, "We had all this information here to go get them for years. And I don't know why they didn't, but I went and got them." And I love him for that. I absolutely love that. Um,
Are you aware of Nick Freitas?
I love Nick. I love Nick Freitas.
Okay. I
He's
wouldn't have been
amazing.
surprised if you said no because he's a local Virginia politician, but he's getting pretty big on YouTube, and I respect the hell out of him. And he was on I think it was on the Unsub podcast, and they started talking about, I think the term they used was dinosaur conservationists,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But what he was talking about, and one thing I really respect about the fact that he's stepping back from politics, not because he feels like his time's done or needs to focus on his family or anything like that, but he's just saying, look, we're not supposed to be doing this forever, right? This
that's
is
right.
supposed to be a limited thing, and then somebody else needs to come in and do their version of this work. And so I respect that, but also I respect what he was trying to say was that, we get these people elected to do certain things. We talked about this earlier, right? Unresolved problems.
Yeah,
Uh, but his whole thing is that like he works with all these people in local government and federal government who their biggest concern is getting reelected. Well,
yeah.
if your whole thing is you don't want to rock the ship too much or rock the boat too much because you need to get reelected and you can't afford to lose votes on this subject or whatever, I think you should be more concerned that we're not going to reelect you because you didn't do the job that we elected you to be there in the first place.
Right. Right. And then there's another guy out of Tennessee, Tim Burchett.
Mhm.
I really like how honest he is. I'm a big UFO nut, and so I'm always paying attention to UFO news. And he's always on like a News Nation talking about UFOs, talking about this, talking about that. And they've since had a good relationship with Tim Burchett now because of the UFO subject. So they talk about all kinds of things. And when he comes out, he's pretty honest about what's going on. He's like, I was told to shut my mouth and back off this subject, so I apologize. That's what I'm going to do. And I think it's great. I think it's great that he was transparent enough to be able and comfortable enough to come out and say, "Hey, listen, the intelligence community got a hold of me, and they don't want me to talk about this, so I'm not going to." And I respect that. And he didn't
Did he say
make
it was
up.
the intelligence community, or did he just say broadly, they told me not to talk about it anymore?
If I remember correctly, it was more of like a broad thing. They
So it could
told
have been
me.
the intelligence agencies, or it could have been his campaign team saying, look,
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
starting to lose people here.
Well, he said he came up against resistance when he was looking in different areas and stuff, and he put out a bill and all that stuff. So like he was trying to get down to the bottom of some things, but now I think they've got a task force now. Representative out of Florida, what is her name? Anna Paulina Luna. She's heading up like a task force to check out weird stuff like the JFK, MLK, UFOs, that kind of stuff. And I mean, a lot of people don't want to think about, our government being kind of shady, but if you think about it, if we kind of have to be that
And
way because you better hope that there's a CIA out there because for God's sakes, China, look at China and Russia, they're coming for the catbird seat. They really are. And we need agencies out there helping to deal with that. And um, like USAID, I don't think USAID is 100% negative. I understand soft power. I'm not sure if everyone else does, but I understand the need to grease a few pockets here and there. I get it. And USAID
so
was a perfect cover.
I had about a year left in the Marine Corps, and I was getting groomed by a company called Dynacorp because they wanted me to live in Kenya and teach the South Sudanese army how to fight. And that was a USAID contract, right? So yeah, I get it that the giant budget and not knowing what is actually being used for what and all that. I think it's dangerous, and I think it leads to way out of control spending. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
your spouse having a credit card you don't know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can be great if they want to buy you a birthday present without you knowing about it, but it can also be really dangerous and screw up your credit, right?
Yeah. 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 My wife has a secret bank account that I told her to get. So, we
Well,
talking
your
about
wife also
getting.
earns the paycheck, so.
Yes, yes. Well, so I was handling the finances, right? Like
Uh-huh.
house husband running the finances. I hated it. I'm terrible at it. Like I don't know why. Like why would anybody trust me with money? I'm looking at her like, are you crazy? So she recently took it over, but when I was handling all the finances, she came to me and she's like, I am stuck. And I was like, okay, well, what? And she's like, I can't buy you any gifts. I can't figure out how to get money from here to there without you knowing about it or without you even know like an amount or something. And she's like, I thought about taking like a few hundreds so that like you didn't guess. It was impossible to guess, but then you'd be disappointed because it wasn't a few $100s. And so I was like, well, here, just kind of just set up like a bank account that I don't know about and just throw a few dollars every paycheck in there, and then you have your gift fund for me or for your mom or for the kids, whoever, and or yourself. And I'm always worried that's going to come bite me in the ass one of these days. I'm gonna wake up and she's gone or something. But that's why I got to be a good husband, right? That's
Yeah.
an incentive to be a good guy. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. Like I have this mantra. I try to be a better man, husband, and father than I was the day before. And
Absolutely.
a buddy of mine, I can't even remember where he said he learned that lesson from, but he said he wakes up every day and just tries to be a better person than he was the day before. And when asked, I can't even, I'm paraphrasing now because I can't remember how he said it, but he said something similar like, I'm always chasing the person I'll be tomorrow. I want to be a better man than I was yesterday, but I'm always chasing the guy I'm going to be tomorrow. And
You know,
that was a very
on
good
the other side
metaphor.
of that, Jordan Peterson, a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. You know,
Me too.
if if there's a podcast that I find myself having to rewind over and over and over again, it's Jordan Peterson because he's so bright that every single sentence that comes out of his mouth has substance to it. There's
Yeah.
no filler. And so I'll find myself over and over again, 15 minutes into a podcast, I realize I haven't been listening for the last 10 minutes because I'm still thinking about what he said back then. And so now I gotta go back and listen to that again. And I'll do that 30 or 40 times in an hour. You know what I mean? Um, but I want to go back to you were in a car accident recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I was in a near-death car accident roughly 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, Mother's Day. I wrapped my Explorer around a tree. I had four broken ribs, two cracked vertebrae, a punctured lung. I had to be life flighted.
Damn.
I don't remember the accident or anything that happened until I was in the second hospital I was transferred to. It was rough. And so we talked earlier about, watching my uncle and
Yeah.
taking care of the family and, um, if the military's so I had somebody ask me recently to describe success, and that's really difficult, not just to try to describe it for yourself or other people, but like in what area of your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I told him is that, like, look, if I die tomorrow, if I have any regrets whatsoever, it won't be that there was a goal I didn't achieve or a position I didn't get to, or the size of my house or anything like that. I'm very, very comfortable with who I am and what I've
Yeah.
accomplished.
Yeah.
But if I have any regret, it'll be the void that I've left in other people's lives. And that sounds a little self-centered, right? To say I'm so great that other people are going to be lost without me. That's not what I mean at all. But
Right.
I would like to think that I'll be able to watch my daughter's wedding from heaven, right?
Yeah.
But I won't be there for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sorry.
Oh man, you're good. You're
Um,
good. It's hitting me too, man.
so
I appreciate that you can do that here right now.
sure.
A lot of people aren't built like that, man.
So if the military is really good at anything besides, killing bad guys, uh, at a very, very low rank, I became aware of how important it is to teach the next guy below you how to do your job. And
Yeah.
that's something that's missing from leadership in America. I think we have a huge absence of leadership in this country generally, but most people aren't trying to teach their subordinates how to take their job, right? And so when
Yeah.
I was in that near-death car accident, I run two businesses, and both of them, I don't remember having my eyes open when I was telling someone else how to run payroll for my security company. And
Yeah.
so you become real aware of, like, shit, if I did die tomorrow, what jobs would be left unfilled? How are people, are my employees going to get paid for the week they did that I died? You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And so even if you can't afford an accountant or whatever, you got to find a way to make sure that the things that you're doing on a daily basis, that someone's going to be able to pick up that task. And that
Yeah.
includes raising your children and the things that you do in people's lives. So that's what I've really been focused on in the last year or two is, if I died tomorrow, who's going to take care of my daughter? Who's going to,
Who's going to take care of your family, your wife, your kids? I'm with you with that because I think about it all the time myself. I have my 6-year-old has autism. Uh, and I was recently diagnosed myself, so um, I know how he feels, sometimes, and it is
sure.
rough to watch the meltdowns because I know how he feels. Um,
Yeah.
and most of it is frustration because he can't get the results that he wants, and I'm always afraid to leave him. I'm always afraid that I'm not going to be here for him. We're not going to be here for him. And I tell my kids, man, my mom passed away uh 10 years ago. And I tell people, like, when my mom passed away, I was 30 years old, still getting gas money from her, dude. I I my son lived in Warrensburg, Missouri, which is about 2 hours south from here. And I so I didn't miss out on my visitation with my kid. I'd go to my mom and be like, Mom, I can't afford to go pick up the kid this week. Can I get some gas money? And at 30 years old, my mom was still helping me out. And when she passed away, I thought, man, I learned how to live with mom, but nobody taught me how to live without her, you know? And that was a big deal for me. That was an eye-opening moment for me. It's when I realized that I had to teach my kids how to live without me. And it sucks, man. It really sucks to think one day I'm not gonna be here. One day my kids aren't gonna wake up and have dad here. And it sucks to really think about that. But you have to. You have to think about the times you're not gonna be here and the people that depend on you and what they're gonna do. And so I tell my kids, even as young as 6 years old, man, I have to teach you how to live without me.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. And I respect the shit out of you for acknowledging that while you're in the hospital, being like, man, if something happens, my family's screwed without me. My business is screwed without me, and to make those kind of changes right away, it's that's that moment, that kick in the ass that you kind of needed to get you going. And then once you start doing it, once you see results of what you're doing, your kid does something that you normally do, or they've done something by themselves that they don't ordinarily do. You get that same satisfaction as a job well done. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about being a dad. Do you like mowing the lawn? Because I like mowing the lawn. Um, my lawn looks great, and I get that same feeling from teaching my kids how to do something as looking at the lawn saying, I did that. Um, it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling. And I was just talking the other day about my plants here. It's kind of like raising a kid. You're that proud of it. It's pretty amazing to grow something from seed to your mouth. It's fantastic. It's a job well done, and that's teaching our kids, man. It's one of those things that we have to do. A lot of us don't look at it that the way that you do, but you're absolutely right. One of these days, we're not going to be here.
You can tie it into to wealth too, right?
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough, right around the same time that 9/11 happened, my mom gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and had me read that and really shaped the way that I think about business and employment and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that if I hadn't been in the military, I would have started my own business eventually.
yeah.
But I started my first private security company when I still had 2.5 years left in the Marine Corps. And so when most people are transitioning out of the military, they're going to job fairs to look for a job. And the day after I EASed from the Marine Corps, I was at a job fair with a table because I was recruiting other people to come work for me. Um, but you're absolutely right in that it's almost like a child in that you're so proud of what you're able to accomplish through it, but also um, we were talking about like children and um, watching them do the things that you've taught them to do and how you can take pride in that and teaching them to live without you. But if you can do that in a business where you find people to fill all the roles that you would otherwise have to do yourself, you get this incredible financial freedom and the ability to go on and do other things and find other projects that you want to work on and stuff like that because it doesn't need you to live.
You can scale too. And
Yeah.
learning how to delegate is a big thing. I didn't know how to do it because I used to be one of those real control freaks. Um, but I'm not so much anymore. Like with the podcast editing, I'm almost hands off with it because I am so annoyed by the process, and I don't want to sit here and overthink stuff. And like, oh, this has got to be perfect. Oh, this has got to be perfect. So I delegated. I asked my wife. I was like, hey, is this something that you can do, number one? And she's like, I'm sure I can figure it out. And then so I said, okay, here's the next question. Is this something that you will do? And she's like, I don't know, but I'll try. And she's actually pretty damn good at it, I think. But it's one of those things that I had to learn how to delegate and let go of that control.
It's not easy for people to do. I love my brother to death, and I convinced him to start his own tire business. He'd been in the tire industry his entire life. It's what he knows. It's part of him. And so I convinced him to go out on his own and do it his own. And he's doing pretty well. He's supporting a family and so on, but he refuses to give up the control and to train people to do the things that he's doing. And so,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think he's going to be changing tires until he can't anymore, you know?
Yeah. And that's okay for some people though. So,
Sure.
do you ever think about legacy with your companies?
Yes and no. Well, for one, I named my company Leftwich Global Protective Services because there's a statue outside the basic school, and the lieutenants call it the Follow Me statue.
Yeah.
But it's a statue of Lieutenant Colonel William Broom Leftwich. He
Okay.
was an amazing leader, an amazing man, and there's no movies, I can't find a book that's written about him.
Yeah.
So I named my company after him to give that kind of legacy to him, right? I don't really worry about I don't really care about how people are gonna. I don't care about how people think about me now. Why would I think about how they care about me when I leave, other than, my family and my close friends and the people that I have direct influence with.
Well, the reason
Um,
why I ask is because um, I think about this all the time, and businesses when they're left to children. I don't know if you've ever seen that HBO series Succession.
oh, it's a
Um,
great show. It's
the the old
ringtone on
man
my
in,
phone.
the old man ended up selling the business at the end, right? Because he
Mhm.
didn't want his kids to destroy it. And
You
I think
familiar
about
with the
that
term
sometimes.
or the quote "shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations"?
Yes, yes,
The quote's been around forever, but and nobody knows where it came from. But it's the idea that you can build wealth and you will lose it within three generations.
yeah.
And the problem is that most people, and you kind of see it in that show, you can train your children to run a business,
And this is where I was
but
going exactly.
yeah, we have a tendency to not give them the obstacles that got us where we are. And that's such
Yeah,
a dichotomy just in parenting in general, right? Because we want to make life better for our kids than we had it.
yeah,
But for most people, that means removing a lot of the obstacles that grew us into who we are, right? It's another one of our core values is the obstacle is the way, growth is found in suffering, right? We try to make our kids as safe as possible. And a lot of times we end up saving them from the things that really turned us into the people that we're proud to be. And we want to be proud of our kids. So why would we give them that
yeah,
opportunity?
yeah. That reminds me of a quote. Um, I'm gonna have to look it up now so I don't mess it up. Strong men create weak times. Or
Sure.
okay,
Yep.
so hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Um, I I love that because I kind of live that way. I grew up really, really poor and I suffer well. But then when I realized my kids don't, that's when I started making them suffer on purpose. um, you gotta, you can't make things too easy for people. It really kind of messes things up for them. And that's exactly where I was going with that whole thing is when I think about legacy, I think about teaching my children, not necessarily what I do. This is my thing. As a matter of fact, the name of the production company that owns the podcast is called Dick and Ash Productions. That's my wife's first name. Um, the reason why I chose that is kind of fun. The smile you had on your face, that's exactly why I
Yeah.
chose it. So,
Mhm.
I don't want to
I may
leave.
start an I may start a nonprofit for Guide on 22. The name of the organization won't be Guide on 22. It'll probably be another fucking non-veteran nonprofit
That's
doing
awesome.
business doing business as Guide on 22. Right.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
There's so many, right? And every once in a while, I think so. Trying to get attention for Guide on 22 and get people out for it and that type of thing. I've looked at all these other organizations to reach out to cooperate with or collaborate with. And I look at some of them, and there's a really cool organization called Carry the Load out of Texas. And I'm like, they're doing exactly what we do. They just do it on
Yeah.
Memorial Day and we do it in the fall. I had no idea until I started looking for people to collaborate with. But there are so many nonprofits out there, and like yeah, a lot of them are slush funds, but a lot of them are doing the exact same work in a different way or in a different state or whatever.
Yeah, I learned a valuable lesson about that through the podcast. It's actually kind of funny, but when uh when I'm thinking about the production company, my business, I'm that's mine. That's my baby. I'm my
Mhm.
kids are gonna screw it up, and like they don't want a podcast. They don't want to. I would like to have like a media, like a news company, maybe one of these days. That might be kind of neat. My kids don't want that. They don't pay attention to nothing, no current events, no history, no future. They don't pay attention to much, which is a great thing sometimes, but where I was going with that is they need their own thing, and for the exact reason why you had said the three generations kind of rule of thumb is how I think about it. I want my kids to have their own legacy, and I want to teach them about that generational money thing, like don't make it too easy for your offspring because they're just going to lose it too. You got to teach them how to make their own way. You got to teach them how to make their own legacy. And
Yeah,
that's
we
ultimately
don't
what I
need
want to
to
do.
teach we don't need to spend time teaching our kids skills, right? It's fun. It gives you an opportunity to spend time with your children if they like the same skills that you're trying to teach them. But they can get on YouTube, they can go find a way to learn the skills that they need. We have to focus on teaching them character and
Yeah.
values and what it means to be a good person and how to accomplish that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I'm telling you, my older two, they could be in a lot different position what they are, but
Yeah.
they go to work and they go home. That's pretty much it. They're not out. I mean, like we were talking about it earlier. Gen Z can't afford to go out and party like I did, but they go to work, they come home, and they live decent lives, man. They're not out there creating hate and discontent like everybody else their age. They're not out at the bar. Both of them have kids now, so they're raising a family. It's uh it's a good feeling to know that my kids aren't out. I don't have to worry about my children as much as a lot of my peers do their children because I know I taught them pretty well. If you're gonna do something, don't get caught.
I try to live my life in a way. First of all, I try to be transparent, empathetic, and authentic in every interaction of my life.
Absolutely.
But I try to live in a way where if I walk into any room, I want the people who know me to be happy that I'm there. And whether they know me or not, I want everyone to feel safer because I'm there. And I feel like if I can teach my kids to live that way, then I'll be happy with whatever they decide to do with their lives. Somebody asked me years ago about whether one of my daughters was going to take over my business. And God, I hope not. Find something they want to do, build a business around that,
Exactly.
or whatever. But no, I don't. I don't think about my children taking over my business at all.
So that reminds me of a James Mattis quote. Um,
Hmm.
I can't I can't remember how it goes, so I'm paraphrasing here. I was actually looking for it.
Be polite, be friendly, and have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
There you go. There you
Is that the
go. So
one?
anytime like I kind of think I kind of think like I don't even know how to explain it. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you walk into a building, you're scoping out exits, you're checking out for safety. How do I get out of here? How do I keep my family safe? I am consciously thinking about walking on the correct side of my kids or walking on the correct side of my wife.
And
I
making sure they understand why you do that.
Yes, yes. My boys are so I actually have one girl, my oldest is a girl, and then I have three boys. My poor wife. Um, but yeah, I am consciously thinking about that stuff, and you're right. It is. I point those things. My wife actually points them out as well when she notices because like when I'm walking, when we go into Walmart, I kind of trail behind a little bit, you know, to make sure and my wife is usually on the correct side of the kid, and I'm walking behind them, never in front, unless we go to theme parks and amusement parks. That's kind of our thing, and that's really the only time I'll leave them behind is because they don't walk as fast as I do, and I trip over them. So, but yeah, I'm always consciously thinking about that. And when you talked about walking into an area and your family is there, them always being happy to see you. Like my family knows exactly what I'm doing as soon as I walk into a place, and it doesn't take much longer than 30, 40 seconds to figure it out, once you've got that mindset. And I've
Well, to
always
be
kind
clear,
of
I
been
said
that
I
way.
want everyone who knows me to be happy that I'm to see me, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
includes my exes. You know, when my girlfriend and I first started dating, she asked about my relationship with my exes, and I said, well, I think if we ran into somebody at a bar who I had once dated, they'd be more likely to buy us around than start a fight. For
Absolutely.
most of the time, right? There's always going to be exceptions because I've dated some crazy women. Um,
I
but
think
I
we
want
all have.
everyone I've ever interacted with who feels like they know me to be happy to see me, whether I consider them a friend or not, or whether we had a bad dealing for whatever reason. Like shit happens, but I want to
Yeah,
walk away from every engagement where people feel good and content that they interacted with me, you know?
absolutely.
Uh, so we talked earlier about feminism, and now we're talking about the way that we walk with our families and so on. So why do we hold doors open for women and children?
I actually don't.
So I think
I
it's
if
always
I'm at the if I like if I'm at the gas station, I'll hold the door open for men, women, kids.
sure.
it doesn't matter. I don't go out of my way to hold my wife's door open or anything like that, or open her car door. I grew up with a woman who liked to think that she was very independent. My mother and I was raised by chicks, and it was kind of the feminism thing, but not really. My mom's like, I could do things for myself. My wife's kind of the same way. She's very independent. So I try not to, I try not to, also, I think it's a little goofy myself, but that's just me. But go ahead.
So you're specifically referring to like opening car doors.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so the practice of holding the door open for people or opening doors for people, I think we talk about a lack of leadership in our society. I hate to hear people say because I said so, right? And they don't want to explain the why behind the how, right? I
yeah,
think the why is almost always more important than the how because the how can change. The why should probably be consistent. Um, but you think about old saloon doors. Well, if I open the door first, I can look into the bar and make sure that there's not an active fight going on, that there's not a danger on the other side of the door, and that's where that
right.
practice comes from. Now, when you're letting someone into a car, that's a little different, right? Hopefully the inside of your car is safe, right?
Right, right.
But when you hold the door open for someone, you should look inside to the place that they're going into to make sure it's safe before they enter that place. And that's where that practice came from.
I had no idea, man. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's the weird customs that we have, right? I'm like I grew up in the
Mhm.
Midwest. That's a pretty big thing around here. Like I was mentioned, I don't so like chivalry kind of door holding and all that. I don't do that. I'll hold the door open for anyone.
Yeah.
Man, woman, child, it doesn't matter
I don't
for me.
discriminate. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as chivalry goes, I'm married, and the only person that deserves that much of me is my wife. And so and I'd like to think the same of her too. You know, I wouldn't want her being chivalrous to another man. That would be heartbreaking.
So the first business I ever started was called Accolade Security Network, and I named it Accolade for a reason. And now we use the term accolade to mean just about any type of achievement, right? But
Right,
originally, my first security business was for the nightlife security. It was bouncers, and I networked bars together, and the guys that worked for me, I taught them a certain way, and part of that was because I looked at history and the people who fought in wars when we lived in castles and stuff like that. That was all they did was they either trained for war or they were in war. And
right,
so they became so brutish that when a king would invite them into the castle to honor them for the great achievements they made on the battlefield, a lot of times they were such an asshole that they hurt the people that they'd spent their entire lives protecting.
right,
And the same thing happens in the bouncer industry. Most of the losses that happen around nightclubs when it comes to lawsuits and stuff like that are because the bouncers put their hands on people they shouldn't have.
right.
And so the process of dubbing someone a knight is called an accolade, and that's where that word comes from. But you became a knight by demonstrating that you could practice a code of chivalry. The word you keep using is chivalry. Um, a lot of the military still uses a lot of traditions that come from chivalry. Why do we salute? Well, we used to wear helmets that covered our face, and you would lift your visor to show people you were friendly. And so that's where that process of the salute comes from.
Okay.
Why do we stand at parade rest? If you think back to the American Revolution and the people who were being conscripted into the forces to fight the American Revolution, a lot of them didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
It was the only, and leadership was not established. And so the leaders were often just some prick with a college degree or whatever. And so it was not uncommon at all to have, privates, PFCs, whatever, to knock out whoever their superior was. So we stand at parade rest with our arms behind our backs because I can't punch you with my hand behind my back. Right. That's where the parade rest comes from.
I did not know
Marines
that.
still don't walk around with their hands in their pockets. We don't put our hands in our pockets as a Marine, and it's a big joke. And my hands are cold, so I want to put them in my pockets and so on. But we don't put our hands in our pockets so that we can't produce a weapon. I'm not
Yeah,
hiding anything from you. Unfortunately, a lot of our traditions come from bad leadership
that's
and
interesting.
the prevention of killing or harming bad leadership, preventing
That's
mutiny and that kind of thing.
and that's really interesting. Or Russia's kind of like that now, you know, with their military. I've heard so many horror stories out of Russia over the last couple of years. Is pretty bad. Um, I've got tons of friends that know people who have been in those type of situations where they're where they're hazed or um, just bad leadership apparently is pretty abundant these days. It's kind of interesting. I went to court the other day, not the other day, about a month and a half ago, and I was treated very well because of the way I carry myself. I think I put I didn't speak to the people, you know, the opposing side. I spoke directly to the judge. Um, I spoke calmly, clearly, and with a purpose. I wasn't, I was giving facts and stuff like that, and eye contact and just being respectful. And reflecting on that, I think that may be the reason why I am treated the way I am is and people with respect 99% of the time is because of the way I carry myself, and I carry myself like a leader because I am one. I'm leading by example for my children. I'm leading the charge with my entire family, even though I don't have a job per se. I do have a job. It's being protector and provider, right? And that's ultimately what I do, and I take that very seriously. And when we talk about a severe lack of leadership in this country, we have to look everywhere. We have to look at the military. We have to look in Washington, D.C. In particular, with our politicians, our representatives are not very representative of us in 2025. Not like that's the name representative, is you are there to represent your constituents. And you're not seeing that. You're seeing representatives represent themselves. The path of least resistance, making money, getting to Congress with your security, uh, with your security passes and whatnot. I'm blanking on a word here, but when you got those credentials and stuff like that, it makes it easier to go out and get a job after. And when you've got security clearances, that's what I'm looking for. You can those defense contractors that we were talking about earlier, and how that we used to have a bunch of like defense contractors, and now there's only a handful. And so because of that, they're able to
You could say
gouge the
that about
government.
just about every industry in America.
Yeah, yeah. Collectivism. It's turned into collectivism, and it's kind of ridiculous because it's the antithesis of oh shit. I'm blanking here. Uh Capitalism. It's almost the antithesis of capitalism, and it's the opposite. Collectivism is not opening up things for competition, and I think that's a huge problem. You've got corporate capture is a huge problem here in the United States. Like Bud Light, the whole thing with Bud Light. Why was that even a thing? Why was Bud Light weighing in on politics of all identity
Right.
politics of all things? We don't need that. It's not the way that we should do things.
The good thing about a free and open market and capitalism is that you still have a choice to choose, right? And so
Right.
I've seen a lot in my own industry in private security where, yeah, a lot of the small guys are getting bought up left and right. Uh, and especially in executive protection, it presents a problem because you develop a relationship with the person that you're protecting.
Yeah.
And so you see, for better or worse, you see a lot of protectees. They want to have the same four or five guys around them at all times, and they don't want new faces and so on. Or you
Yeah.
see the exact opposite. I think it's Jeff Bezos, and this may just be a rumor, but I've been told that he rotates his security team out like every year because he doesn't want to get too close to the people who were responsible
That
for
makes
protecting
sense.
him.
It makes sense.
But where you see a lot of these big corporations failing that are buying up all these small security companies, or even big security companies, a lot of the big businesses are buying the other business or merging or whatever. And when you lose that relationship with the client because you're swapping people out all the time, you lose what it really means to provide a really good customer service because you don't understand the needs of the client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Customer
so I'm
service is
almost
another
certain
thing.
that,
Go ahead.
yeah, and I'm almost certain you see that in most industries where you see these. small and medium companies getting bought out by bigger companies, they lose a lot of that direct customer relationship that you used to have. And so that client, a lot of times, thank God we live in a capitalist in a free market where they can go find another medium-sized business that will give them that direct customer support and build that customer relationship with them.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's
That's the only
amazing to
reason
think
why
like
I'm
that.
able to compete with the larger companies, is because I can provide that one-on-one relationship.
Right.
Because they refuse to do that, and so I can eat their lunch because they're not doing the little things that really make a huge difference.
Yeah, I ran into a PR agent the other day. The same thing. She offers very personal service to all her clients. One-on-one phone calls, one-on-one videos, all that good stuff. And the reason for that is because nobody else does it. And it's that personal. I care about you, and me caring about you is my bottom line. That's what makes me money, is me caring about you. So let's do this together. I really like that business model. Customer service is one of those things that is frustrating, to say the least. Over the last 20 years or so, it's all been automated, and it's actually forcing people to have to do things on their own and find their own answers. I think the big thing for this conversation here is, man, Guidon 22 is a very admirable thing. It's a very admirable cause, and it's a very important cause, brother. And I want to thank you very much. I
Appreciate
want to
that.
thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for your continued dedication and service to the United States military and our citizens. Me, I want to thank you very much.
Appreciate that. It's not just military, right? We we say veteran suicide prevention, but it's not just military. Suicide's a problem in every community, every organization, every background, culture, etc. Um, so we try to not just honor veterans, but also first responders, EMTs, law enforcement, etc., or anyone who's just struggling with that particular disease.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Embrace the ruck. And I'll tell you what, man, I would actually like to finances are a little tight this year. We
Mhm.
just dealt with
For
four of the
everyone.
well, we just dealt with the four worst years of my entire life. But I'd like to. I think it'd be a good time to start doing a few miles here and there, and I'll come join you on that rock march.
Hope you do, man. I would
Not
I would
this year,
love
but
to see
next
you
year.
out there.
It'd be
Cool.
awesome. I would love to do it because when I first so I've got a buddy that runs marathons, and I couldn't imagine having to run a marathon, but I think I could walk 22 miles. That sounds doable, man.
You can.
And
You can.
it's it actually sounds like a good time too. So, and a good time, good people supporting a great cause. I just I can't thank you enough, man. And Rich, embrace the ruck, and hold on, hang out with me for a second, and I'll let these I'll end this thing. We'll see you guys next time.